This is the final boarding call for the Let's Talk About Travel podcast, hosted by Linda Hill, sponsored by Glasgow Airport.
Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Travel. My name's Linda Hill and I'm your host of the podcast. And over the last number of months, I've loved bringing all the conversations to you about travel and all things travel. And today is no different. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined in the studio today with the Chief Operating Officer from Glasgow Airport. So welcome to the podcast studio, Ronald. And we're going to really delve into what it looks like behind the scenes at Glasgow Airport. So thank you for agreeing to come in. I know you're very busy. We've been trying to get you for a few months, but we've finally tied you down. So welcome.
Thank you. Delighted to be here and delighted to join you.
The big boss from Glasgow Airport. It's great. So Ronald also looks after Aberdeen and Southampton Airport as well. So that's EGS correct. Is the group.
Yes.
But the airport close to our hearts is Glasgow. So we're going to talk about Glasgow today. But before we do that, let's just take it back to 18-year-old Ronald. Tell us how you went from being an 18-year-old to being the COO of Glasgow Airport.
It does feel like only yesterday, but it doesn't look that way. I had a lot more hair and a lot less wrinkles for sure. So I joined the airport 26 years ago this October.
Really? As long ago as that?
Joined as a modern apprentice on a management trainee programme. I was wanting to leave school. I was interested at that time in hospitality. So I did my work experience at the what was the Trust House 40 Hotel, the Albany Hotel in Bothwell Street, no longer there.
No longer there, isn't that sad?
And that, but it did put me off as well.
Oh, did it?
And I think it was probably the long days and talking to the staff, they were like, it's 16-hour days, it's hot kitchens, you're serving meals to 800 people. And that was a bit scary. So I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do? And I was working in Safeway at the time, pushing trolleys. And
that's a name from the past as well.
Yeah, now known as Morrison's. So I saw an advert in the Herald in the jobs page for a management trainee programme at the airport, and I hadn't even flown at that time. But as a boy from Paisley, I knew the airport. My dad used to take me down with my brother to go and watch planes, and I was like, I'm quite interested in this. I saw the salary and I thought, oh, I've got the grade so far from fifth year to get in. I could skip university and go straight to work. So it was almost a tick.
No-brainer.
Went through the process, was delighted to get a job as a management trainee programme. And that was a 3-year programme starting as a modern apprentice at grassroots. So working in airport security, working in the information desk, working in airfield ops, marshalling aircraft. So you got a small period of time in each of the operational areas of the airport and a little bit of some of the back office areas as well. That got me hooked. That was almost the in. And 26 years on, I've had 17 different jobs, and just over 2 years ago became the Chief Operating Officer for the group.
Well done. That's a real success story. And for young people listening maybe to the podcast, when you said about skipping university and going straight to a job, I think we need more of that because university is not for everybody. And for you to have started literally at the grassroots and now you're the CEO, that's hard to say, COO, it's amazing. It's great.
I don't disagree. And my parents, my mum and dad, were both hoping and wanting me to go to university. And I remember having that discussion with them about if I wanted to, I could pick it up later. And I have a few times looked at considering some part-time study, but something else comes up in our industry that gets me more excited or more involved, and whether that's been some of the transformation stuff that we can touch on later. It's coming at Glasgow. But I have also went back into further education. So I'm now a non-exec director at West College Scotland. And my modern apprenticeship was with Reed Kerr, which before the 3 colleges merged to become West.
That's cool then.
I went back to join the board of management there, which I absolutely love. And I completely agree with you. And I love seeing, particularly in the travel and tourism space, a huge supporter of the work that they're doing in the college. I know that Ayrshire College, Glasgow, many colleges have got a lot of great students that we see every single year coming into Glasgow and sitting in seats, whether it's in dispatch, check-in or cabin crew.
Brilliant.
And they're coming through that route and working their way through those organisations. And it's great to see.
And it's a great industry. I mean, obviously I come from a retail travel background, but it's all part of the same industry. It's a really close-knit industry as well, and everybody knows everybody. So if there are any people listening, then absolutely join the travel industry because it's been good to me, it's been good to you.
I remember going probably 2002 as a seat filler to an SPA event. So I'd never heard of the SPA. 2002, I'd been at the airport 2 years, and I was asked, there's a table, somebody's pulled out last minute, do you want a free meal tonight? Okay.
What's not to?
I'm an 18, 19-year-old boy, been offered a free meal and a free night out. So went along.
And was that the February dinner?
It was.
And you went back for another one because they are hard, heavy duty.
It was indeed.
There was no such thing as a free meal at the SPA.
And I remember it was at the Crown Plaza, or the Moat House as it was back then. And I remember looking at my watch and it was like 3 a.m. and we were still enjoying a party. But the thing I remember most about it is a lot of the people that were there are still in the industry, are still going to some of those events, and are people that I interface with, whether it's day to day or people that are in different travel organisations that are working with us. And that whole family piece extends beyond just the airport campus. It is absolutely into the travel agencies. It is into the airlines. It's into the sales organisations. Because for us, we can sometimes be the first and last point from an airport point of view of the person getting on a flight, but their journey starts way before then. So their decision about where they're flying from can quite often happen in your shop.
Absolutely.
And it's heavily influenced by destination, choice, and product.
And also how easy it is to work with you as an organisation. You know, it's good for the agents to know some of the background stuff. So when customers say, but what about this? We can tell them exactly why it happens. You know, and over the last few months, actually, I've been at a few events which has been involved in the back end stuff. And it's been really interesting to see you doing your job and see how it all comes together, because you make it look easy.
Thank you.
And it's not.
I was like, it's probably a bit like a swan at times.
Yes.
So up on top, it can look graceful, but underneath there's a lot of people and a really great team that are really working hard.
They all need to do their job to make it.
Yeah.
Because a few weeks ago, we were delighted to welcome back into Glasgow Airport the Glasgow New York service with United Airlines, followed straight away but next week with WestJet and their Glasgow Toronto service. And just watching, you know, how you interacted, getting, you know, all the kind of dignitaries through to, it's not easy. Because you've got all the security at the airport. And
we see ourselves as a bit of a conductor of an orchestra. So from an airport point of view, my team is actually one of the smallest teams on airport, but we own and operate the airport. To work airside, you have to have your airport security pass. There's about 5,500 security passes at Glasgow. And my team is about 200 of those. So it's not the biggest team. But what we do is work, engage, influence, and collaborate with all of those different partners to make sure that our infrastructure is working for when they need it. And also to make sure, for example, when we stood up on the roof, so again, Audrey, very keen to make sure that we got our travel trade, our VIPs, front and centre. I was scratching my head with the team to say, right, how do we do this?
can this actually happen?
Let's take them on the roof. It was dry, which was great for
Both days were great, I know.
And it was one of the best vantage points, but allowed you to see the airline working with the ground handler, air traffic, airfield operations, the fire service with the water cannon salute, all of that coming together. And that's where, time and time again, whether it's day-to-day operations, major events, or crisis situations, which our industry has seen.
Sadly, yeah. We were just chatting about that, you know, before.
Far too many coming together and working to say, right, how do we get this aircraft in and out? How do we get those passengers, whether they're flying on their holidays or they're flying because of a necessity? How do you get that? And that's the buzz. That's what's kept me there.
Yeah, and how do you make it a great experience for customers? You know, in the airport are always, and there's been huge investment and huge investment still to come in the next 5 years. I'm watching with interest all the new stuff that's coming to the airport. But it really is, it's our international airport celebrating 60 years, which is pretty amazing.
It is a massive milestone and one we're immensely proud of. 60 years serving Glasgow and the west of Scotland, and we don't just take that for granted. We know that there's many happy memories between staff that have worked there for many years. Some of our longest serving staff are close to 45, 46. I think actually one's 47 years this year.
Wow.
That they've worked at the airport. So whilst I've got 26 and think I've been there
You're
a long
baby.
time, I still feel like a newbie in that space. But no, we're really proud, and there's a lot of celebrations throughout the year, different events that we're participating in. And just last week was the official unveiling of the children's birthday cards.
That was a lovely idea. I saw that in socials.
Just a really nice touch to bring kids back into the airport environment. What do they think? And looking at their different pictures of sunshine, holidays, aircraft, and we've now got that. You can't miss it on our
And they're our
forecourt.
customers of the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting you said at the beginning how your dad had been a boy from Paisley, would take you to the airport. That was a great night out back in the day. You know, we used to go to Prestwick Airport when there was flights out and, you know, and watch the planes. It was a big excitement, and to get children back involved in that excitement is just great. But it's not all sunshine and happy days. There's challenges as well, and it's also really interesting to watch the airport cope with, you know, challenges like what we had, you know, on 28th of February when we had the Middle East crisis. And, you know, I take it that flight to Dubai was already boarded or just about to board when it was cancelled. So
the inbound flight was airborne.
Right.
I know that very well because my boss, our chief exec, was on that flight.
Oh, right, okay.
So again, Wi-Fi on aircraft, the ability to get messages. I had put a message in our WhatsApp group to the senior team to say that there was a situation developing, airspace in the Middle East was closing. And at that time, Cam had put an update to say he was on the aircraft inbound to Glasgow. And unfortunately, obviously, when it landed, it didn't go anywhere for a number of days. But a lot of that preparation is done in advance. How do you react to disruption? And we test time and time again. We tabletop exercise. We once a year we bring all of the emergency services together and we actually do on airport events. And some of your listeners might have seen us advertising on social media. Don't be concerned if you see blue lights around the airport on a Tuesday or a Thursday night, because we're doing that as a test. And that means that if something does happen for real,
you can react.
Everyone knows where they need to be. Everyone knows what their role is. They know where the plans are. They know what their responsibilities are. And they know how to interface. And that's, it's great. Time and time again, it's not great when it happens. Far from it. We want aircraft to arrive and depart on time and people to get to where they want to go. But when things do come arrive, so whether that's a challenge with the baggage system or whether it's a airspace restriction or even some of the disruption we've seen in the last week, weather throughout Europe. So we've seen some really great weather, but that's also brought thunderstorms and lightning, and that's
impacts flights.
Really impacted the flying programmes. And it's how do you manage that disruption to make sure that we keep people as informed as best as possible. But that's
I think communication is key for customers, isn't it? It's like they don't want to find out from somebody else. They want to find out, you know, and the airport's great for information. I flew in on Thursday night. The day it was really, really hot, and I came off at Glasgow Airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the door opened and the heat hit me, and I was like, I have never in all my nearly 40 years of flying have had that at Glasgow Airport.
Is this Gran Canaria or Glasgow?
I know, it was bizarre. I'm not sure it'll ever happen again, but and it was nice to see the staff not all, you know, their rain jackets on. But no, it's a great airport. It's you know, I nearly crash going over the M8 every time trying to get a glimpse of the big Emirates aircraft and see. You can't see as much as you used to because there's been lots of development at the airport and the car park's now bigger, which is good news because obviously more capacity. But great to see some new routes coming in this year.
It's been fantastic.
And more to come.
And more to come. And a lot of the transformation and expansion work that we're delivering at the back end of this year will take us through probably 2 to 3 years to deliver, because a lot of the work we're going to try and do, and most of the disruptive work we'll try and do in the quieter periods of the winter, so that we're protecting those summer peaks.
But it's our job to make sure you're not quiet in the winter.
No, absolutely. And that's, as the CEO, one of my other parts of managing the operation is all of the capital investment. So how do we build it? So the challenge I have from the board is, okay, how do you build at the same time as we continue to grow and support? So our commercial team are out talking to airlines, working with the travel trade. How do you fill those seats? And at the same time, I'm looking at how do we make sure we can get people through the airport, whether that's through security or into the departure lounge, and get those flights operating, as well as demolishing, building and installing a far bigger departure lounge and a better passport area at the same time. So it's a great headache to have.
Yeah,
and having been there for 26 years, I've seen the airport through a number of iterations, smaller improvement plans, but this is probably one of the biggest that I've seen at least since about 2007.
And even the area where all the bars and restaurants are, I mean, that's even changed in the last 6 months. There's been a lot of new kind of vendors come in, which is nice. And it's great to see the airport literally with no seats. It's a nice problem.
It is good. And we've not wanted to just sit back and wait until 2029 when, we unveil. We know we'll have over 8.5 million passengers using Glasgow this year.
Oh, is that the number?
So when you're in that space, you're wanting to make sure that those passengers remember a great experience this year so that they come back for next year and the year after. And that's why we've changed, modified, and in essence, did a lot of housekeeping. So tried to strip back, where are the sight lines? So back to that piece about communication. People want to know, okay, I'm here, I've checked in, I'm now airside, where am I going? And a lot of what we've probably had to do for a number of reasons is not necessarily been joined up, but we've got a new team, certainly focused on retail with our retail director, really looking at what do customers use in the high street and what are they looking at in the airport and modifying. And we're doing even more of that for the transformation work at the moment. And it's really exciting to see those brands, spaces develop.
Mm-hmm. No, it's been great to watch, and I say then the next 5 years will be really interesting. I mean, regularly customers say, when are we going to get a direct flight to the most obscure places? And you think, never. Let's just focus on, I mean, how many flights have you got a week? Do you know the number?
We are round about 350 to 400 flights a day,
mental,
arrivals and departures.
And that's domestic and international.
Domestic and international.
Yeah.
And that, certainly if I take a busy summer's day like today with the school holidays, we'll be close to about 18,000 departing passengers. Most of those passengers, I'd say probably about 10,000 are departing before 9 o'clock in the morning. So a huge first wave. And then we've got that second wave in the afternoon where you start to see EasyJet, Jet2, TUI, that holiday bank, Ryanair coming back in for that second wave and going out to some of the further destinations.
I think, customers that are listening, one of the things that I think is great is you can do priority security. And for me, it's a no-brainer. It's like $6.99 or $7.99 because your heart does sink when you go up that escalator past the Rangers and Celtic shop and you see the queue and you think, but it goes really quickly. You have got that first wave going out, so you are going to see, especially if you're travelling before 11 o'clock, it is going to be busy. So get your priority security and it must be a massive headache, trying to manoeuvre that amount of passengers through an airport.
It can be, but that's our job, to try and make it as easy as possible. And for a lot of people are unsure about what are the rules, what can I take.
And that's not Glasgow Airport's fault. That is just travel in general, because nobody knows from one airport to the next.
Agreed. and a lot of what we try to do, working with Audrey in the travel trade or even on our social media channels, is try and make that easier to understand. And that can be frustrating because it could be different from what it was last year. And in fact,
last week.
Or last week. And in some instances, that's by design. Because when people get familiar with what are the rules and the processes, some of the bad guys might also get familiar with that as well and look at ways of how do you work around that. So by design, but what we are trying to do is make sure that people are not spending time in queues. So we are not by design trying to create a queue, but when there is one, we will want to try and get through as quickly as possible. And we've got the new equipment.
It's great, so you don't have to take off shoes or anything. Everything stays in a bag for now, because this could be listened to next year and it could have changed, but it's great. So it makes it so much quicker.
Yeah, and I think also different dynamics of passengers. So we will see normally first wave business passengers travelling quite often.
Used to it.
Know what they're doing. I'm seeing passengers that are coming through just now that maybe haven't travelled for a year, slightly slower and taking that, am I allowed to take this through? But if anyone's listening that's not sure, just jump on the website. So have a look at the airport that you're flying from, the airport you're flying to, and they will have how to prepare for security and just follow those rules.
I think the interesting thing though is Glasgow Airport, I think, is pretty straightforward, but obviously it depends where you're going to, because you've got to then be prepared for coming back. So
Both
it's
sides.
not just, and that's where I think the frustration is if all airports were doing the same. But interestingly, you're saying it's by design that it's changed about. So that's quite interesting.
It can be by design. It depends. So there might be information which results in a change in some of the security posture. But every airport wants all passengers to get through as quickly and as safely as possible. But the requirement for, my mum will tell me that she gets searched every time she goes through the airport. And I'm saying, well, you're not individually being looked for, but there will be random elements. So her bag, she might have no items in her bag, but her bag might be rejected for a random search. So that is designed that it's randomised. Now, she thinks that we're targeting every time she comes through because
she's Ronald's mum.
She's my mum, but it's definitely not the case. And I'd said that to her. Do you find that when you go to the US? Yeah, I can see that in the US when I'm in Vegas.
So it's not just Glasgow.
So it's not just Glasgow. So, but yeah.
I've never got an issue actually with being, if you go through and you beep, I think fine, because at least, it's safe. And for me, safety is always going to be paramount. And it's like when people moan and say, oh, the aircraft's gone tech. Well, I'm delighted it's gone tech here and not up there. So, these systems are in place to protect us. So,
and I would say ask. So if I'm travelling through the airport or anyone, ask the security guard, why is my bag being searched? We've got screens that you can now see, so it helps the security guard see what's inside the bag. It's an X-ray image, but they'll also show you. And I think time and time again, passengers love to see that. You can see the kind of, whether you're a child or an adult, there's the inside of my bag. So that's what it looks like. And I think when you see, particularly whether it's a cabin bag that's been well packed with an iPad, a camera, a phone, a charger, when you put all these things together, even though they're X-rayed, it can be still difficult to see what's behind it.
Yeah.
So just ask the security guard the next time you're through, why is my bag being searched?
Or it could just be at random, because, that's another thing.
And they'll show you.
But no, it's clever with the new machines for your feet as well. You don't have to take your shoes off, you just have to stand in the machine. So
they were a big investment for us. They're about £30,000 each. But
and have all the securities got just the first few, or have they all got them?
All of them in Glasgow have them. And again, that was
I never go up to them, so I always do priority. So
that was the decision we took across AGS to say at all three of our airports, let's make sure that passengers, because we know it can be a disruptor when people are asked to take their shoes off. You may still be required to do it, particularly if it's large boots or large shoes with wedges. You may still be asked to do so, but for the majority of passengers, you can now be taken to that shoe scanner. So you're not having to sit down, not having to worry about the hole in the sock or having to look for the shoe covers or the foot covers. You're now able to just go through and be prompted to use that machine.
And I think what's important to remember is it's for your own safety.
Yes.
You're not doing it to be awkward. You want Glasgow Airport to be the industry standard and be the leaders in what you're doing. And I think, I know you're doing a great job. To have that amount of passengers going through seamlessly through your airport is how do you sleep at night?
I've got a great team. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it is
nice
true.
To hear
I couldn't do my job if it wasn't for and I don't just mean my own direct reports, but I mean the wider Glasgow Airport, Aberdeen, Southampton, but also the campus teams that we have. I walked around, I was in Aberdeen this morning, was walking around talking to the ground handlers, talking to the retail staff, just getting an understanding from them, how are things? What's working well, what's not?
What can you change?
And I love doing that in Glasgow, and being a Paisley boy who's worked in Glasgow for all those years, you know people. You get to know them, you get to know the cleaners, you get to know the retailers, you get to know about their family, and just taking that moment out and understanding, how are you? What does that like? You start to build those relationships, which in the good times are great, but in the bad times they're even stronger.
Yeah,
because those are people who will look and say, I know how you work, I know your style, I know what's expected, and I'm going to do it. And you referenced the United launch. Again, just the excitement across the campus. People weren't out going, well, I'm contractually obliged to do this. We all knew what we were contractually obliged to do, but nobody had the service levels and the KPIs out. Everyone was, let's make sure this flight works. Let's make sure United as an airline are delighted with you in Glasgow. Let's make sure the customers that are booking either with United or with the travel trade are happy and enjoying the experience they've got in Glasgow. Because for us, that works its way back up to network planning. It works its way back to the airline to say, is that working for us commercially and also service-wise? Everyone knows that. I don't need to put an email out that says, dear everyone at Glasgow Airport, here's what we're trying to do.
They all know it.
People know it.
But it's been led from the top, though.
And there's a real, we talk about Team Glasgow and the pride, care, passion and pride that everyone has. And my mum, she'll come in and say, I was talking to somebody who works at the airport. Okay, what do they do? I don't know. But people time and time again will say, where do you work? I work for Glasgow Airport.
With pride.
With that pride.
Yeah.
They won't necessarily say I work for Glasgow Airport Limited, I work for Swissport, I work for Boots, I work for TRG or SSB.
It's all just one big
work
family.
at the airport.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
a
nice.
brilliant sense of community. So, and I think also sleeping well because of what we do, we test and we prepare. And a huge amount of my job is looking beyond 12 months and looking at the 5-year plan, but knowing that I've got a team that are focused on 12, 6.
And what's happening today?
All the way through to the airport duty managers. So the airport duty managers are running the airport on a shift-by-shift basis. We've got an on-call process. They've got well-tested, executed plans. So we know that they're going to manage up to a certain level. And if it exceeds that level,
You have to call
then
in.
it's working its way up. And we don't mind rolling up our sleeves. It's 24/7 business, Christmas Day, New Year's Day.
Well, that's right, the airport never shuts,
No,
so that's
we're fairly used to it. And I also think that's an attraction. I don't think I could ever probably see myself now on a Monday to Friday 9 to 5.
And here you were worried
Cruising.
about doing the hospitality 16-hour days. You'd probably do a few of them.
Agreed.
Because there's been a lot of weekend stuff recently. And interestingly, you had the privilege of flying out the Scotland team a few weeks ago.
We did indeed.
So that must have been exciting.
It was immense. Just the atmosphere, having Steve Clark, the team, the World Pipe Band champions, the Inveraray District Band, families from across the airport. So I'm not sure if it was the kids or the staff that enjoyed that more, but it was certainly designed for the kids. But just bringing that atmosphere, I mean, Scotland qualifying to get to the World Cup, irrespective of the result on the field, was a phenomenal atmosphere. And the many thousands of the Tartan Army who descended
Just
into
to wave them
Glasgow
bye-bye.
and go, whether it was on that day or the weeks after it, flying across the US, it was a phenomenal atmosphere across the airport. So we've, not
Not
going
the
any
result we
further,
looked for, but
we've had a really, really great
Good season.
good season with the Tartan Army, and thank you. I mean, it's been brilliant to see that atmosphere coming to the airport, and it's really put us into the summer mood.
good. And we are literally about to hit school holidays. School finishes today, so it's going to be a very busy week at the airport for you.
It is indeed,
Yeah.
and we love that. I mean, a lot of the shift workers enjoy it because it makes the day go quicker. So when you're busy, but I think it's also that passenger atmosphere. People bounce off that positivity. So whether it's people going on their first holiday or their second or third holidays, people have worked hard. Everyone works hard to get that holiday, and it's important that we recognise how do we get this as slick as possible.
And you
for
are
those
the
individuals.
first, and as you said earlier, first and last touch point. So, it's all very well us putting people into the airport, but they need to have a great experience from literally walking through those doors that say welcome to Glasgow Airport to leaving again and getting in, even the car parks, that everything has to, there's an awful lot has to work. So it's, we should do a day in the life of, because we're out of time. Can you believe it? I can't.
Wow,
I know.
that's been a very
And
quick.
We didn't even get to talk about what does your day look like, which I'm sure no day is the same.
No,
so can I
definitely.
ask you a question? Can you come back and do a part 2 with me?
Absolutely.
In a couple of months' time, maybe once the summer season's over and you can get a breath, if you ever do get a breath.
Sure, maybe we do it on airport. We could do a
Amazing.
record as live and get you
Yeah.
out, and we can do some Vox Pops whilst we're there.
That would be great. It's
Brilliant.
been a great conversation, and it's just so good for listeners to hear what goes on behind the scenes. So the next time they're at Glasgow Airport, they can actually say, do you know what? And I can see how it all seamlessly comes together, and it doesn't just happen. There's a lot of work goes on. So thank you so much for joining us, and also a big thank you to Glasgow Airport because they are our sponsor for the podcast, which we're delighted to work hand in hand, and look forward to a great summer season.
Great, thank you, Linda.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to all our listeners and viewers, if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe on YouTube and follow along on Spotify, and look forward to next week's conversation.